Okay, Basket Case from 1982, a movie that I've actually known about for a while now. Definitely a pretty sizable cult classic in the 80s horror landscape, I think. It's not a slasher or anything like that, so it's not quite up my alley, but it has a couple sequels. And, I had seen that image of the um, like creature inside the picnic basket for a long time, like years. And I like rock music, so Basket Case, and I hadn't heard much, and I honestly, straight up, I haven't heard a lot about the movie, but I knew it had some cult status because it had sequels, super super low budget, and I mean, every horror movie for the most part is on Shutter for a reason. It's made by horror fans for horror fans, right? So there has to be something to enjoy here. And holy shit, Basket Case has to be one of the most B movies I've ever seen in my life. It is one of the movies of all time, if you will. Good God, let me just come out and say that for better or for worse, I think it kind of depends how you're looking at it. It has the worst acting, consistently, the worst acting, delivery, sound design that I've seen, like, honestly, including the really bad movies I've watched that aren't completely amateur. Um, I mean, it's up there. It is up there because, to me, obviously, definitely a B movie. That's where this movie's acclaim comes from, and I can see it. But for a vast majority of this movie, it's 90 minutes long, so it's not 75 minutes like a Slumber Party Massacre. But for like 40 of those 90 minutes, or, well, no, like the first hour to me is played too straight to be a full on cheese fest, like cult movie, like something of, Chopping Mall, right? Like there wasn't enough comedy. The only reason I was laughing is because holy shit, how terrible of an actress or an actor are you? What the fuck was the director thinking? Not retake, like calling for a retake. Like you're butchering the dialogue. It is absolutely atrocious. The plot itself is different. It's not a slasher. It's basically a monster movie. It's about a guy who's kind of a sociopath, now that I think about it, who has a Siamese twin who, upon his conception, kills his mother. Right, she passes away giving birth, um, and he has a Siamese twin attached to him, and he looks like silly putty with a face, essentially. And so they surgically take him apart, and they are together trying to get revenge on those doctors who went through with the surgery. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And they kill people along their way. The body count, it's not super high, and the gore, if we're talking like actual respect, the gore is not half bad. It's not that bad. It's actually pretty decent, you know? Now, the killer itself, I think his name's like Bellion or some shit like that. I just call him an abomination because that's what the fuck it looks like. As I said, it looks like a bunch of like flesh, or like, I don't know, a skin colored peach colored brain mush, that is clearly a puppet and or just a big rubber like prop for a vast majority of the movie. And it has like arms and it has like teeth, and like throughout the movie, this it was made on a $35,000 budget. I just want to throw that out there, and it was shot in New York City, which is in like Manhattan, which is kind of interesting. But like throughout the movie, like its eye colors change, and like I think at parts it was an actor or an actress with makeup, and then at other parts it was clearly just a prop, and then other situations it was a puppet. Like it changes around, and I think its consistency is not by design. I think it's genuinely because the filmmaking was on such a small budget and or just not well done to the point that like the shit sticks out in kind of a charming way if you're looking at this as a straight B movie, which I completely understand. And it, I guess, it has a sizable cult following. It has sequels, for God's sake. But for me, I don't know. I felt like it was a little too straight for most of the movie, which kind of had me like pitifully laughing at like how bad it was, as opposed to like being entertained and be like, oh my god, what the fuck is happening? Which I, the ending kind of had me there in a way, but like, good god, the abomination itself, like when it actually starts attacking, it seems to just like rough up their faces, I guess. And like I said, the gore's not bad, like it's, they do a pretty good job with the makeup effects, because there's a ton, basically every character who's killed has scratches all over their face and they're gushing blood. It's not bad. It's pretty well executed, all things considered. It's probably the only thing that I can objectively say is done well. But like whenever the characters have it like attacking them, they just look so ridiculous, flailing around with it, like basically like, I don't know, it looks like a it's like the size of a pumpkin or something. No, it's like the size of like two pumpkins, and like they're just like spinning around in circles, and the sound design is atrocious, and like I said, the acting is bad all the way across the board. There's not a single character that shows up in this movie that doesn't butcher at least one line of dialogue. Most of them, it's pretty consistent, which is kind of like, it's another one of those, I feel like that's an aspect that people can compliment when it comes to like the B movie status of this movie. It is pretty crazy. It's pretty amazing how consistently bad the dialogue and the acting was. But you just can't help but to just like shake your head and laugh. And like part of me feels like I'm being too dry and too much of a prude to really like criticize this movie on its obvious shortcomings, because it was made on a shoestring budget, and it does have a cult following, and it has a couple sequels. But I don't know, for me, you have your scenes in this hotel that is I guess maybe it's an extended stay, I don't know, but basically everybody seems to live there, and like some of the characters are kind of memorable, I guess. The black, I want to say she's a prostitute, I don't know, down the hall, she's kind of hot, and also the funny doorman who doesn't run the place but works there at the bottom. He kind of looks like Wilford Brimley, so he's a little memorable. All of them, by the way, just want to throw it out there, none of them can act. Not a single character in this movie that shows up can act. The love interest of our main character, who is not very interesting, like I said, he's kind of a sociopath. She is relatively attractive as well, has a grade A rack, so kudos to her. But the rape scene at the end is just absolutely appalling, and that is when it gets into so bad it's good territory, where it's just like, what the fuck is going on? And you just, like I said, can't help but just abandon all rational like thinking of what the fuck I'm watching from like a standpoint of, does this make sense? Is this rational? Instead, you're just like, fuck it, this is funny. Like, and this is like, what the fuck? Like, my reaction the entire last 20 minutes was this, like, this demeanor, this tone. Like, I is this actually happening? Like, okay, now I can see why people actually come back to this movie, and why people can find a silver lining in it. But for me, I don't know, I did watch this by myself and stone cold sober. I do not want to watch this movie again. However, if I was high and if I was watching this with somebody else who happened to be a fan of bad movies, or a big group of people who loved some cheesy 80s movies, 80s horror, and we were all drinking or smoking some weed, I feel like this movie could be actually a really nice, but the vast majority of my movie consumption is not under those circumstances. And to me, I don't want to watch this movie again sober, because like I said, you have to kind of sift through about 40 to 50 minutes till you actually get anything that's remotely entertaining, in my opinion. Otherwise, you just get like bad filmmaking, honestly, because they play it too close to the like they conceal the Abomination's identity in the basket for far too long for me to say like this movie isn't just from Jump Street trying to be goofy and over the top, you know. But anyway, like I said, I can't, if I have to objectively, rate this movie and critique it, it's a 0 out of 5. But I don't think that sucks. That's a shitty way to look at media, music, movies, anything. But from an overall enjoyment standpoint, like I said, first bit a little too tedious for me. The bad acting can only be so funny. At a certain point, it gets actually annoying. Because there were certain moments where the screaming and just in general the noises that this abominable creature makes is kind of grating to the ears after a while, straight up. And some of the lines of dialogue are just like my favorite. I think my favorite. You can sum up the entirety of this movie's futile execution from a fundamental filmmaking standpoint in the surgery scene. That shows you all you need to know. And that scene is absolutely ridiculous and it's very memorable. And so I respect it for that reason. But my favorite has to be whenever the abominable Siamese twin is busting in on our main character and his love interest and he cock blocks him. The reaction she has whenever she sees it in a panicked, let me up, let me get out. Like she's trying to get out of the fucking bed and she's like, let me up, let me up, let me up. Like she has to casually work up to the clear sense of urgency she's supposed to be displaying in her fucking delivery. And it's just not there. And it's absolutely hilarious. And it's clear as day. And how they did not see that as a bad thing makes me think that they had to be shooting this movie for laughs. But the beginning just doesn't, I don't know. It's the beginning is just it's not there. You know what I mean? I don't know. I found some parts to enjoy, but once again, in order for me to really want to watch this movie again, I would have to be high or I would have to be in the mood with somebody else or something like that to want to watch a really, really bad, corny 80 cheeseball B movie. And so for that reason, I'm going to give it a 2 out of 5. 2 out of 5. It's got its moments. And if you are a fan of some really fucking low quality, goofy, 80s horror, cheese, B movie fest, crap, cult stuff, give it a watch. I'm sure you, like me, will find some stuff to appreciate, if not more. So yeah, 2 out of 5.